I'm Allie. I came out after 20 years of marriage and I have 3 kids.
I'm Melissa and I have 2 kids and I came out at 37 after an 11-year marriage.
This podcast is about coming out later and the struggles and victories that come with it.
When coming out feels like the end of the world, but it's really just the beginning.
This is the Lesbian Chronicles. Welcome to the Lesbian Chronicles. What's up, my friend?
I am so excited because tonight is the night that you are coming to Second Friday.
Tonight's the night.
Yeah.
I'm
saying it
up.
so that it's out in the universe. Like, you have to come.
I'm definitely coming. I mean, this is happening. I have my outfit picked out. I'm like,
nice.
I washed my hair earlier. I'm gonna come.
You're ready to hit the
I'm
town.
even gonna do the pre-drink.
Yes.
I'm
very impressed.
Yes. I'm actually really, I love doing things in my neighborhood. So you've got a captive audience in me. If it's ever within 2 miles of my house, I'm there.
And yes, and this is. So,
and actually, a lot of people I love are going. So to me, it's like, this is an easy one for me.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And then tomorrow we have Porch Fest and Pride.
Yep.
So
how long do I get you at Porch Fest?
Maybe like an hour and a half.
What?
I got to get back to the gay shit.
You're so lame.
And on Sunday I have my daughter with me, so I don't get to fully like immerse myself in the park on Sunday because I will be on mom duty.
You don't get to wear your chaps on the float.
Yeah. But I am, like, my daughter's so excited about like participating in the parade and stuff. So it does make me feel really good that she's like so amped about it. And really, my son would come too, but he does not want to walk that far. So, but he's a little disappointed. I think he might actually be like a last minute decision on coming. So we'll see.
Yeah, maybe I'll show up with my little guy. I got to see what we have going on. There's a chance. So you're saying,
I mean, when I say that this parade is fantastic.
I know, I love it so much, especially Dykes on Bikes. I love all of it.
Mm-hmm,
Where are you going to be?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Other than I'm walking with Second Friday. If we see someone we know, like we've walked long enough, I might hop out and just watch for a little bit. So we'll see. I'm not like tied to being in the parade.
Yeah. I have this like really bad memory of one year at Pride. I was with you, but I wasn't with you yet when my catalyst was like, you know how once the parade starts, you cannot cross the street? Like you're stuck. So if you pick a location, you're committed. Yeah. And so I had picked a location to be with you right by your place in Midtown. So we were great location. We were all set up. And she at some point realized that like my location is in a bad position for her location, which is on the other side of the street. Partly it could have all been by design. I have no idea. But I remember it being like this huge drama that we were on opposite sides of the street and the parade had started and it was just,
oh my God,
bad news bears all around.
That was a rough
Pride
day.
That was a rough Pride.
Pretty sure that's the day my clothes got thrown outside.
That was the day your clothes got thrown outside. Can you believe how far we've come?
Oh my God.
And we were like full-grown adults even then.
I know. No one's ever thrown my clothes outside.
No, throwing your clothes. I've never had a friend who's had their clothes thrown outside.
Welcome to being a lesbian.
It's true. Talking about being a lesbian, we have a guest today that I've been like manifesting in the universe that we could have on. And you delivered once again, my friend Melissa.
Hey, we put it out there and Caroline, you sent us an email or a message on Instagram saying, I think I'm your girl here. So welcome.
Yeah, welcome, Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Been listening for several months. I'm excited to join you today.
Nice. So Caroline is an OBGYN and heard our call for someone who's knowledgeable about menopause. And we're so thankful for that. Where did you pick up, like you found our podcast, but did you like start at the beginning or cut half in?
No, I cut half in.
Okay,
I started with an episode because a friend was being highlighted. And so then I started listening and I've gone a few months back and listened to a few of them. But no, I haven't been here from the very beginning. I apologize.
No, we're kind of glad because our first episodes were really kind of what I like to call grassroots.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, they get a little better sound quality wise as time goes on.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Caroline.
Yeah, so I'm a board certified OBGYN in Indiana. I am also late in life, was married for 16 years to a lovely guy. Thought, this is the life for me. And then about 2 years ago, I had this really amazing experience and a mutual connection with a woman, and the light bulb went on. Like, this is exactly what I've been missing, and I'm not necessarily able to stay in this heteronormative life anymore. So I told my now ex-husband. I did the tough work of coming out to friends and family, the ones that needed to know. And then, I did the divorce as quick as you can do it in the state of Indiana. It's like 60 days and ours was like 66. Because there wasn't much to argue about. And I'm thankful. I married a really great guy, and he's always been supportive of me. And although those first few months were tough, he and I have a wonderful co-parenting relationship, and he still supports me, which I'm just so blessed for.
Yeah, that's the key. It's like that makes all the difference. And like you said, there's nothing to really fight over.
No.
Nobody did anything wrong. So you didn't have these feelings before. This just was like a catalyst situation.
So it was a catalyst situation, I guess, because I knew when I was 15 and 16 that I felt lesbian, and I had a girlfriend in high school. But again, that was a secret. So this was a newer development, but a previously decided upon thing that I was just not going to be lesbian.
Yeah. Okay. That's like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I knew inside I was, but I was doing a really good job. And, for darn close to 2 decades, I had myself convinced that it wasn't going to be a thing.
Right. And
what was the thing that kind of pushed the domino?
So shortly after I had obtained my board certification, I had the lowest point in my mental state. I was unusually depressed for having reached to that pinnacle.
Yeah.
And this was months before I met her. And then circumstances as they are, you just don't ever feel like you can make this out, because what am I going out for? Like, I'm going out to be me, which again is totally reasonable. But until I had someone that represented that type of connection for me and was reciprocated, I didn't have the confidence in myself to do it. So once that little bit of reciprocation happened, it was like, game on. This is what I have to do.
Is that woman still in your life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I often, sometimes the person who hits the domino, as Melissa said, doesn't end up, it kind of represents that, and then things go on. But that's lovely. Well, the real topic, though, that we're here to talk about today is menopause.
Yeah. And I'm not in menopause yet, but I treat menopause, and the perimenopausal transition is occurring in most women in their really early 40s. And so that's what I'm basically interested in doing today, is talking about things that should be talked about, validating individuals like that I see in my clinic, my practice. They just need to be heard. They want to be validated, even if they're not saying, I'm here to be validated today. How they're asking questions and how they're presenting concerns to me, there may not be any treatment needed, but the value of being listened to and disguising that with, that's just normal aging, or that's normal process, with, that's frustrating. It is possible that it's normal, but we don't have to sit idle and watch it happen. We can actively participate in some form of therapy, whether it's pharmaceutical or not, to achieve a better life for you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're right. Like, people don't talk about it. And so a lot of times, like, I remember I'm 49 now, I still have my period, but I feel other symptoms. And so I think perimenopause, I have anxiety now that I never had even 5 years ago, 3 years ago, or things like I don't sleep as well as I used to. And so all these things, but my OBGYN kind of was like, until you're not having a period, we don't address these things really. And so but then I've heard other people say other things. So I'm really curious around kind of your perspective on that when you're in perimenopause. Do any over-the-counter things work, or are there things you can do for some of these symptoms?
So let me just start off by saying I am sorry that you have been made to feel or to understand that you can't go forward with any hormonal therapy or any therapies until you've had your final menstrual period. Because when you've had your final menstrual period, you don't know that for an entire year.
Yeah.
So you're suffering longer than a year, arguably, but at least a year before that date in time goes, oh, my last period was now 12 months ago. I can be treated for menopause symptoms.
Right.
When the truth is, you can be treated for menopause symptoms as early as 40.
Wow.
If you have them.
Right.
And there's no biological age that's consistent among all women. There's a point in time between 45 to 55 where you expect menopausal symptoms to be normal, but they can happen in the early 40s.
Right.
And they may not happen at all. So these are the conversations that I enjoy having with my patients. And now I'm passing on to you in the audience. These things are so individualized, but there is a pattern. There is some consistency. There is a lot of inconsistency in information, but there are so few people like yourself that get a true advantage of being on hormonal therapy or being talked about because simply someone's practicing in the older mentality.
How do you know, though, if it's perimenopause or just like so many changes were happening in my life?
Yeah.
That it's like sometimes I'm like, maybe it is just, my life is different now. I'm not a stay-at-home mom with kids. Now I'm working. Now I'm, living a whole different lifestyle. It's like some of that is just my life changed a lot. So it's like, how do you tease it out?
Teasing it out requires someone talking to you and them actually listening. And so, you can run through the possibilities of other medical conditions, other life conditions. But at the end of the day, your age range would lend to say, these are part of your perimenopausal symptoms.
Right.
And anxiety and difficulty in sleep doesn't have to be associated with a hot flush or a night sweat, although we may have them and they may worsen our sleep. But anxiety and sleep and brain fogginess and moodiness, those can all be perimenopause, even if you're not having the classic hot flushes and night sweats that so many people feel comfortable treating.
Yeah.
What are some of those symptoms that people see like in their early 40s and onward?
Yeah. So one of the biggest symptoms that individuals who have a uterus and ovaries, they'll experience a less frequent ovulation, which will be indicative of a cycle that becomes irregular. So in the assumption that a woman or someone who's born with ovaries has a normal menstrual cycle, meaning that they have that period every month, about the same time a month, that looks the same and feels the same, you'll have a space in time where they stop becoming as regular. You might skip one, you might be off by 2 or 3 weeks. And so those menstrual irregularities will be one of those earlier symptoms of the menopause, the perimenopausal years. Another symptom is where women will say, my periods are lighter than they were. They're still happening, but they're lighter. And that is a decrease in the amount of estrogen that your body is making through ovulation and the release of an egg. And in my experience, women may not recognize that because they get the question, when they come in their gynecology visit, are you still having your period every month? Yes. Or is it still lasting for 3 to 5 days? Yes. They don't ask, is it the same consistency? Do you feel the same? So that's why the menopausal transition can be so hard to tease out, because it doesn't come up on the review of systems that you get when you check in your doctor's office.
Would you say that women in their 40s it's almost like stigmatized to some extent? Like even me talking about it now feels kind of awkward. It's like, do you feel like when people come in, it comes up, or do you actively ask about menopause, or is it like, what does that look like in your office?
It kind of depends on the situation. When I see a patient who's just there for an annual,
Yeah.
they're not complaining of anything or
Yep.
they're not participating in any dialogue about a concern, I will anticipate if they are between 40 and 55 that in this next year of your life, you may experience the following. And I'll kind of go down some of the common menopausal complaints. If you are experiencing any of these things, you know where to turn. You can call me, and we may not have a visit, in that month, but we'll be able to have a conversation just about that in your life.
Right.
And some people look at me and instantly you can see their facial expression change.
Yeah.
And they're like, yes, I am having that. And we go into the discussion.
Okay.
Now, as frustrating as it is for someone who has a busy schedule, I can't always spend 30 minutes talking about menopausal transition changes that they're experiencing because we're booked for a 15-minute annual. So I run the risk of not being a very good person to talk to in the middle of a busy clinic, but that doesn't mean I stop the conversation. If I do have enough time, like the next patient's not ready or the next patient hasn't shown, then I just keep going and I talk. And I talk as long as they want to until they feel comfortable with our information. But then if they do have a concern in the next year, if they didn't that day, they'll know, hey, Dr. Caroline said that I can call back if I have one of these things. And sure enough, it's happening.
Oh, yeah. It just kind of opens that conversation.
Yeah. And yes, these are conversations that may not have happened if I weren't their provider, because some people in my office or in my state or even in my community that don't work in my office, they may not feel as comfortable talking about it because they may be a male gynecologist or they may be a gynecologist who's not open and transparent like I am. So they're not doing a bad job. They're just not doing a great job for you.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
But my patients, even if I don't hear them saying they have a menopausal or perimenopausal concern, my patients get some anticipatory information about what those transitions may feel like or look like.
And when it comes to when you I don't know, biology and evolution and people they go through, I guess, ovulation makes you kind of have a higher sex drive so that you reproduce. I could be I feel like I remember this from science. Naturally your body wants to have sex when you're ovulating because that's what's going to make the species continue.
Yeah.
So if you're starting to not ovulate, what does that look like for women in their 40s or 50s that are now, layer that on with coming out and they're kind of excited about having sex with women, but now they're not ovulating. Yeah. It's a complicated scenario.
So we are a complicated species in the lesbian community because maybe not everyone that's listening today, but a lot of us are coming out late in life. And that late in life for me was 37. And looking back into my heteronormative life, I had little to no desire in sex with my husband. But at any time in the month now, I'm very interested in sex.
Yeah.
More so than I've ever had. And the interest is there. So I'm coming at it from a different angle, but I know that the menopausal transition, again, may last for 4 to 7 years, but can start as early as 10 years sooner than your last menstrual period. And so as we decrease our natural estrogen levels, we also have a change in the number of ovulatory cycles we have. So that plays a role into how interested or not interested we are in sex of any type. So that biological change that is occurring at the same time we're aging, at the same time we have difficulties with our relationship, at the same time we have changes with our kids, we may be asked to do more in our job, or we may be asked to care for a loved one who's aging. So there's so few things that we can tease out to say, oh, you're menopausal, you're decreasing in sex. Yeah, you have a sexual decrease interest, but doesn't mean you're not interested in it at all.
Right. Or maybe it just takes different things to kind of get you to the point of being interested.
Yeah. There's a study of lesbian women and straight women that was specifically done in Massachusetts because they were able to see vital records of married lesbians and use that. And of the two populations, there's still a decrease in sex between married lesbians and married straight women. So that biological certainty is true. The conversation is, a lot of misogyny because, the straight women feel like, well, their husbands will say, I'm not interested in sex because, or they're not interested in sex because she's aging or she's going through menopause. When the truth of when they asked the straight women, they were like, yeah, I've gained a little weight in my menopausal years. I don't feel as comfortable with my body. Plus, he can't do it anymore. He's got a little bit of ED or erectile dysfunction. But at the same time, those lesbian women, they're like, yeah, we're aging and we're going through the same menopausal transitions, but we don't see sex as important for us because of our love is so deep and our relationship is so strong. It doesn't bother us. So no matter which population you're looking at, there's a decrease in the interest and the desire and the need for sex overall.
And is estrogen, like hormone replacement therapy, you're saying you could do that early, you could do it at 42, at 43, if you wanted. Absolutely. And is that a help for all those kind of things?
There really is. There's no, I hate to say this, and I wish I had a better answer, but there's really no obvious quick fix for the decrease in sexual desire during the menopausal transition. There really isn't. Mm-hmm. We have tried, as a profession, we have tried a little bit of estrogen and testosterone because that seems to be associated with, a lower libido, but it's not really helpful because it has side effects that are bad.
Right.
So there's teasing out the decrease in interest is really tough. And when I have these conversations with patients, I just say it's so multifactorial. We need to work through all the reasons why either you're not interested in it, your partner's not interested in it, or it doesn't feel good anymore.
Right.
And then we go down the conversation of what is it really that's bothering you? And then how can we address it? As opposed to saying, oh, take your estrogen, you're going to be so happy. I don't want patients walking out of my office thinking that I'm going to fix their low sex desire or low sex interest by slapping an estrogen patch or taking an estrogen pill, because I'm going to give them false impression of information that's not true. And I want to be very truthful, even if the information is not exactly what they wanted to hear.
That makes sense to me. Go ahead, Melissa. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what happens after you get through that menopause phase? Does your sexual desire come back? Did we bounce back from this, or is it just all downhill from there?
I'm gonna say that we need to change. We need to change the attitude towards the menopause transition. If we have the mindset that this is all downhill, we're going to have the attitude that it's negative. Our bodies are doing an amazing thing. And physiologically, we're changing in the dominant types of hormones that we have circulating, but we're not dead. We have to keep our bodies healthy. We have to incorporate, if we don't already, we have to incorporate at least 100 minutes of exercise a week. We have to pay attention to what we're putting in our body. We need to make sure we're trying to get 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep a night. So it's not all downhill, but we need to approach the menopause transition as another layer of the normal process of our bodies and celebrate that to a certain extent. Again, I'm 39, so I'm not in that menopause transition myself just yet, but I'm preparing myself for those years with more of a positive attitude. I'm going to have a plan in place to help me with my vasomotor symptoms, so night flushes or night sweats and hot flushes. But I'm not going to be able to keep them from happening. But I'm also not going to be worried that they're something bigger than they're not.
Does estrogen help with the hot flushes?
So the treatment of the hot flushes themselves and the night sweats in general typically falls on an estrogen or a hormone replacement therapy.
Are all estrogen, when people say hormone replacement therapy, do they specifically mean estrogen, or are there other ones?
There are other ones, but that's what most people think about. So the hormones that we're replacing can be estrogen, which is the dominant one, but it's also progestin, and that's a hormone too, and that's released in the second half of a normal menstrual cycle. And then whenever there's no pregnancy that would occur, then you'd have your cycle. So then you have the withdrawal. So every month, whether you're having a cycle every month or every 3 months, you're having some sort of estrogen level change and progesterone level change. Again, it's just not as robust and as often in the transition between perimenopause and menopause.
It's kind of funny. My daughter is 11, and so we're starting the conversation of like puberty and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's reminding me of this. This is kind of like the next stage of life that, and we like, you know, it's kind of like we feel like afraid to talk about it. We're scared about what's ahead.
When am I going to have
all
it?
this stuff.
Yeah.
When is it? When am I going to have it? It's like, it's a little too full circle, I feel like.
Well, we need to normalize these conversations. And I'm so glad that we're opening up this dialogue, because if you really look at it, whenever a young lady who is starting having those breast changes, the height changes, she's growing a little bit, even before she has her first period, that's essentially what we're doing with menopause. It's just reverse. She's starting the process of having estrogen and progesterone. She's starting the process of ovulation. And so those changes are happening to our body. In the menopause transition, we have less of it, and we're having less of those changes. And so those young people like your daughter who are 11, hopefully you're having conversations, or she's able to open up conversations about how she feels about her body. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It can be weird, but it's normal. Same thing with menopause. It can be awkward. It's uncomfortable, but it's normal. And just because if your 11-year-old daughter has a period, let's say in the next 2 years, she starts having her period, they're extremely painful, they're very heavy, or she just wants birth control. We don't need to make her feel bad for having a birth control pill to help with one of those. But in the interest of menopause, women will say, yeah, sex is painful. My periods are all over their place, or I just don't feel comfortable in my body. And we're like, well, it's part of normal aging. I'm sorry. No, we can treat that if you wish to have treatment. We can help you with that if you want some form of estrogen hormone replacement. And we can also discuss what we don't need to do. Again, I think we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. And I just am trying to make sure that women or people that are born with ovaries are able to open up conversations with their providers, talk about it with their partners, and then make sense of it as we're all trying to figure out our bodies in these 4 to 7 years of transition of not having periods and 10 years of having the symptoms before.
Is there stuff over the counter that you think is helpful, or is it kind of just a money grab on commercial?
So there are a few products that have some efficacy. There's a product on the market called Estroven, and one type of it adds, I think, a natural herbal supplement that helps. And I have patients that are in the perimenopause years, like are still having their periods and really haven't committed to taking a birth control pill or hormone replacement therapy for the menopause symptoms that they're experiencing, but they're having them.
Yeah.
So again, they come in my office and they go, yeah, Dr. Caroline, well, I've tried this Estroven over the counter because a girlfriend of mine had or whatever. And I say, oh, okay, well, how's it helping you? Well, it's helping me a little bit. But at the same time, they're having those symptoms intermittently because they're still having estrogen at times.
Yeah, right.
But then when their periods either stop or are close to stopping, they come to the estrogen's not working anymore. Right. Because you're not making it in your body anymore like you were a few months ago or last year.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are definitely worthwhile trials. And some people, that's all they want. That's all they need. They just need a little bit of supplement, a little bit of help. But individuals who are very distressed by insomnia because of menopause symptoms, anxiety associated with menopause symptoms, or just the symptoms themselves, they need to know that unlike the provider you've spoken with, there are hormone replacement therapies that you can use that are prescription that can be very helpful before you have your last final menstrual period.
Yeah, I think I would be worth exploring for sure, because I feel like, Yeah, my period is still relatively regular. I mean, it is later now that I'm like thinking about it, but it's
Yeah,
so what you're saying is my body is still producing estrogen, but
correct.
it's just not probably what it was producing 10 years ago, obviously.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what's happening.
Okay.
And it's so safe to use a hormone replacement therapy. Let's talk about the options
Yeah.
if you want. So women or people that are born with ovaries who have a normal menstrual cycle, who have seen changes, skipping periods or lighter bleeding or, insomnia or anxiety, they may not truly desire or need contraception if they're not having sexual activity with someone that was born with testes. But they say, you know what? I have friends who have been on the really low dose birth control pill because that is the menopause hormone replacement for women who are perimenopausal.
Oh, wow. Okay. I never
Did
knew
you not
that.
know that?
No.
I saw your eyebrows
Yeah.
go up. But if you talk to people who are in a straight relationship who have not needed contraception, they shy away from wanting to accept that knowledge. And again, I'm not here to persuade them to do anything with their body. I'm just allowing patients to understand that these options do exist.
Right.
This could be an option for you if you wished. But some people, oh yeah, I took birth control pills years ago and had a really negative effect on me. Well, what was a negative effect? It could have been a bleeding pattern problem. It could have been their mood felt different. It's like, well, you know what? That was 15 years ago. If we put you on the very low dose birth control pill now to see if it helps you, and in 3 months it's the greatest thing ever, we'll continue it for a few more years. If it's not the greatest thing ever, maybe that's not the problem, and we'll look at something else.
Right.
If you don't like it for whatever reason, we'll discontinue it. But I don't want, unless there's a really big red flag, or we call it contraindication to a low dose birth control pill at any age, trying it for a few months and seeing if it benefits you, when again, it may benefit a lot of people, is the conversation that I want people to be having with their provider.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. Because like you said, you don't have to suffer through it. It's like maybe it would be tremendously helpful. I mean, I think of
It
all
could
my
be.
friends. I mean, anxiety in my friends that are over 40, we talk about constantly. Everybody's having these mixed symptoms, and they're getting on, which I'm totally down with. They're getting on sometimes anti-anxiety medicine that maybe
Correct.
the hormone replacement therapy would have helped, and they wouldn't have needed to do the other thing.
Yeah. The truth is, in studies, there's a large study of women of all backgrounds, cultures, and ethnicities that looked at how much anxiety women have during the perimenopause and the menopause transition, and how that worsened their menopause symptoms. Whether or not we identify anxiety as a menopause symptom, it is in my mind, because anxiety by itself worsens menopausal symptoms, and menopausal symptoms cause anxiety.
Oh, geez.
Jesus, I
So
know.
mind blowing that we would treat both components. If someone doesn't wish to dive into hormone replacement therapy for whatever reason, whether it's not safe or they're not comfortable with it, if they get on a low dose medication that is suited for anxiety, they may see a really nice trend in their menopause symptom severity.
Right.
And so which one you're treating doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to treat something.
Yeah.
If not, you're going to feel crazier because you're not getting the validation, the conversations about this are so very important.
To your point about it makes the symptoms worse. It's like if you're stressed or anxious, you don't sleep as well. And to me, it's like if I don't sleep versus like if I did get a
Game
good night's
over.
sleep, it is game over.
Yeah.
Like I am
Yeah.
not the
Oh,
same
no,
in
totally.
meetings. I'm not the same. It's socially, it ruins everything when I'm exhausted.
Well, if you look at the non-hormonal options for menopausal symptoms, one of the FDA approved treatments is an SSRI, which is the treatment of anxiety and depression. That is an FDA approved non-hormonal treatment therapy for menopausal symptoms. Why do you think that is? Because there's so much anxiety in the perimenopause years.
Yeah.
And teasing out what the cause of it is may not actually happen. You may not know what your symptom is coming from, but you know you're having it. You can
Right.
feel it.
Right.
So let's do ourselves a favor. Let's talk about it. Let's gauge. Let's ignore the stigma of talking about it and bring up to your annual provider, your gynecologist, your primary care, whoever it is, bring up to them, but let them go ahead and exclude a thyroid disorder, because thyroid disorders can cause anxiety. If you have pre-existing anxiety and it's worsening, maybe we don't have you on a medicine that's perfect for your anxiety. But if we're really searching in this time period in our lives for the cause for anxiety, it's probably going to be perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah. Which in some ways makes it feel a little better to me, like to have a reason. I don't know why. It's like it's validating.
It is validating. And I see this no matter what medical condition I'm treating. Once we've achieved a diagnosis, it's validating for the provider.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I call patients with such excitement. I found the reason for your problem. Here it is. And it may have nothing to do with menopause. It's just so nice to have an answer for the question of, why is this happening to me?
Yeah. And is it normal? And
yeah.
Right.
It is normal. It's normal. It's normal, but we don't have to think of it as bad.
Do people come in and tell you that they're a lesbian? Like my gynecologist, I feel like really it's a long story.
I was going to say, have you come out to
No, I didn't, because
oh my God.
I didn't.
Okay.
And then
that was a question that was popping up in my brain, because I feel like I've had this conversation with a couple people, late in life women, who are like, they don't know how to tell their doctor that they're gay. And I think they're also like, like how to broach the conversation. But I think they're also kind of like worried about being judged in some way of it. But and maybe also thinking that, like, what's the big deal? Like, why do they need to know? Can you kind of cover those bases?
Yeah. So in the intake forms in my clinic, one of the questions that you can answer or not answer is sexual identity. And as a late in life lesbian, I have not really taken a lot of time in my past to really think about that too much. But it's important that your provider, not in all circumstances, no, but it's important that your provider understand you. Because I love, and I'm sure you can hear this from my conversation, I love really knowing my patients. And sometimes how I get to know them and what I know about them can help shape our conversations in a way that otherwise wouldn't happen. So yeah, they may not feel comfortable talking to you about it, and you may not feel comfortable talking to them about it. So then I think that's kind of a barrier to getting really quality care. Does it matter that they know you're a lesbian? No. But could it matter a little bit? Yeah. And I remember back to my heteronormative days, I did on 2 occasions, I remember it directly, consistently. I would feel very honored to have someone dive into their sexuality with me, because they trusted me with that information. Also, on 2 instances, I went back to my office and I cried a little bit when I got to see women who were in my office and were out as lesbians and were in, quality lesbian relationship, because I didn't think about it at the time, but I really wanted that for myself. And I thought in those moments that it would never happen.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky situation, but for me, I wear a little pin on my badge that says LGBTQ with rainbow. It's not very big, but it's big enough for people to see it. And then my watch band is like a Pride watch band, or my Apple Watch. And so even if they haven't checked the box on that, by seeing that in me, some people have commented, oh, well, let me tell you about this. And they'll come out to me. And so they felt that comfort level, even if they don't know my background.
Yeah. Cause I bet,
so
I'm sure that's
really
true.
nice.
Like that is like, it does make it so like it's this completely safe space that people could say anything to you. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had anyone say anything negative
towards me?
Yeah. With the gay, like being
Yeah, because
I'm
I feel like there is like a bit of a stigma within the medical field, almost like it's like a privacy thing, I guess.
yeah.
People don't want to share, like as a provider, they don't want to share their sexuality. And like it's nice to see that you're out and with the rainbow and all that stuff. I think that's really like
Yeah.
helpful representation.
I
But have you
agree.
found that within the medical field that like people kind of don't like to share that aspect of themselves?
I have found that, but I'm trying in my own self. I'm trying to soothe that anxiety in my own person. And so I hope that patients can see that in me.
Yeah, like that's a
Like,
big deal.
yeah, we're
Right.
not going to stop talking about it. If you don't feel comfortable chatting with me, sure, no big deal. But going back to your question about like a negative, I have maybe had a couple maybe smirks or glances that I felt were negative, but
Hmm.
nothing overtly said to me that was negative. I've had a lot of positives.
Yeah.
To be honest, like within the first year of me coming out, and I don't care who told her or how she found this information. This woman brought her child to me to be a patient. And she's sitting there, the child sitting on the table. And then maybe towards the end of the conversation with delving into this child's circumstances, she looks at me and she goes, I want you to know we came to you because we knew that I don't know if she said lesbian, but we knew that you would be open to this conversation
Uh,
about how my child feels. And I was just awestruck that
yeah.
that information was out, but that it was being used for this good purpose
Right.
of having a dialogue with a child who may not have been understood by most people, but needed a provider.
And it's more than a provider. It's your doctor to a child is a massive authority figure. And if an authority figure is telling this young person that it's okay or
Mm-hmm.
affirming it,
Yeah.
it's game
Mm-hmm.
over. It's if I had had that, I would have felt 100% great. If my doctor, who was a massive authority in my life,
Mm-hmm.
said it or was okay with it, then I would feel like I had full permission.
And I say this not to like be overly emotional or philosophical about it, but I approach my being a doctor and being in medicine as like throwing out that that old story about the starfish. Like you can't save all those starfish.
Yeah.
No, but I can help this one person.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I can impact this one person. And I'm going to keep impacting that one person, as frustrating as it may be at times to deal with everybody else, because that one person and how they're feeling and what they're doing with their body is important.
I think, and my
Absolutely.
reason for not telling mine is kind of funny. Because she had delivered my babies, and I felt like so
Mm-hmm.
much time had gone on that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell her that then it was like too awkward to say anything.
So
So then
I'm
I
like,
just let it
when you go
ride.
in, is she like, how's Chris doing? Like,
Well, now actually, I don't. She's back in my old neighborhood, so I've now like switched pretty recently doctors, so
Mm-hmm.
it won't come up again. But I had felt this sense of like she was really couldn't believe I got divorced. Like she had gotten to know me all these years, knew my
Mm-hmm.
husband, knew our children. So I think to her it was like her mind was blown that I was getting divorced.
hmm.
Yeah.
And I wasn't comfortable at that stage of my process to share. And then a year or 2 years went by. I just never told her. And then it became like this weird thing where I can't like now be like, oh yeah, here's why we got divorced. But I could tell she was dying to know. And I just like let it ride. And then the years went by. And now she's probably like, whatever happened to Allie?
She lays awake at night wondering.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
switched dentists because I didn't want to tell. Like I already told the dentist that I got a divorce, and then she forgot,
Oh, you had
and
to do
I
it
didn't want to have to keep telling her.
twice.
And so I was like, I'm switching dentists.
Goodness, I got to switch out of here. I can't do it again. Oh Lord. Well, it's funny enough. The woman who told me about the that I have to wait till haven't had a period for a year, I suspect is gay.
mm-hmm.
So it's like interesting to me that I don't know. She has that kind of advice.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you are kind of getting that sort of medical advice, Caroline, is that like a sign to maybe seek out someone else that could be better suited for you?
Yeah, and I talked with a friend this morning specifically in preparation for this podcast because this friend she actually was my OBGYN when I was in residency and delivered my second child. She actually is in a web-based company now where she sees individuals as a menopause provider only.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
Yeah. So I
neat.
told her, I said, I'm going on this podcast and I'm talking to them about menopause symptoms and how the perimenopause transition affects all of us and trying to help normalize some of these conversations. And I said, tell me more about what it is that you do, because I know you work for this menopause company now. And she goes, yeah. She said, I don't replace someone's OBGYN on site because when you go to your annual, you may not feel comfortable telling them, a lot of things about you, but they're there to make sure you have your mammogram order and your pap smears up to date and do your age-related screenings. But they don't have the 15, 20 plus minutes it may take to really dive into your menopause concerns. So people feel dejected. People feel not heard and seen and treated and all that. She said, so people log in, have a 30-minute visit with me. They talk through all those symptoms. They, number one, get the validation they're looking for.
Right.
And number two, I can prescribe them medication to their local pharmacy to help them through this transition, even without their OBGYN that they're currently seeing that they're otherwise happy with.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
I said, this is awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I didn't know. I knew that she was doing this, but I didn't know like what she was actually, what the job looked like. But this is a perfect conduit to your circumstances where you've got a provider, they've gotten everything you need to have done, whatever, but they're not giving you the same kind of relatability when it comes to hormone replacement or discussion about your recent symptoms of menopause.
Yeah, I think I like that. I love that. So does the web-based person see people all over, or is it like certain states?
She said they have providers in every state.
Oh, it's so cool.
Even though they never physically see you in person.
Yeah.
She said, I do my visits in my pajamas.
Yeah.
But she said, but I enjoy what I'm doing because when I was a full practicing OBGYN in clinic, I didn't have the time to talk through it. And I didn't delve into all the options because it was cutting into my time. And I think she said she'll be 50 next year. So she's 49. She said, I'm going through that now too. So now not only am I going through it, I'm actually helping people through it. Yeah. So it's a really nice process of job satisfaction for her as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. It is such a need.
Any web-based company that individuals that may be listening, seek out. I'm not going to plug this one in particular, but seek out, if you do not go straight to your provider that you have in person, seek out a web-based company to discuss your menopausal symptoms that has board certified OBGYNs as the providers. They have nutrition counseling, they have mental health counselors, and they have these OBGYNs that are doing this web-based practicing. And that would be such a lovely thing for people to do without feeling like they're bothering their OBGYN that they don't feel comfortable talking with. They don't feel comfortable talking with their PCP, or they're just not getting the answers they're looking for.
Well, and they are rushed. Like the truth is, I mean, that's a fact. Yeah. Like it's not, it's busy.
It's not a surprise.
No, even like when I take my kids to the pediatrician, it's like I'm worried, like I'm rushing because I feel them rushing. So I get it.
Yeah, we don't need to fear how our body's changing. We just need to be prepared, aware, and be given all the options so we can make the best decision for ourselves.
And I do agree, like talking about it more. Like we had a guest on last week that said that. She's like, no one talks about menopause. They just don't. And so
we should be.
Yeah, we should be. It's just normalize it.
That's one of the frustrating things that I have heard from people who come to my office after being referred to one or two different other people for the same symptoms that are probably menopause. They finally get to my office and they just completely come apart. I've got all the tissues ready. They're crying the moment we start chatting.
It's like, hear
and
me.
They go, I've been waiting to talk to someone about this, but they sent me here and they sent me here and they sent me here, and finally end up in your office. And the first thing I say to them is, would you like to talk about the symptoms of menopause? Would you like to talk about these things? And it is immediately tears because they've been frustrated for so long. They now get to talk about how they're feeling and they feel good.
Yeah, they feel validated and like they can take action. To me, part of it is just taking action. Like, I don't like to ever just sit dormant in an issue. I have to be moving forward or trying to do something. So it's like, that feels really good, I'm sure, to everybody.
Yeah. And so many people that I have spoken with, they feel frustrated when they know what can happen and they've started a treatment therapy of their choice. They feel bad for their moms, for their
never
aunts,
got to.
for their older, relatives and friends that have had to just grin and bear it. And they go, oh, I just feel so bad because I remember my mom going through this, and my life as her child could have been better if she had been treated this way.
That's
absolutely.
Yeah,
Man.
Sure. Well, Caroline, thank you for taking time with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Enjoyed it.
Want to support the Lesbian Chronicles podcast? Rate us and write a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
We love listener feedback. If you'd like to share your story, email us at melissaandallie@gmail.com. That's Melissa, MELISA, and Allie, ALLI, @gmail.com. Or follow us on Instagram at Lesbian Chronicles.